near the Elbe River, Germany. The thousand-year Reich is collapsing into a landscape of jagged ruins and white flags. Sergeant Leo Kessler of the 2nd Armored Division moves through a shattered village, his M1 Garand held at the low ready. The war in Europe is in its final act, but for the sniper hidden in the clock tower 3 blocks away, the surrender hasn't happened yet. A shot rings out, the sharp, whip-like crack of a German Mauser. Kessler dives behind a burnt-out Panzer IV. He doesn't need to see the sniper to win this fight. He just needs to fix his position. He signals his squad. 4 Garands begin to bark in unison. This is the wall of fire in practice. They aren't just taking pot shots. They are saturating the clock tower with .30-06 armor-piercing rounds, and the heavy bullets chew through the brickwork and timber, forcing the sniper to stay down. Under the cover of this semi-automatic barrage, 2 GIs move up the flank with grenades. The fight is over in 90 seconds. As the sun sets over the Rhine, Kessler sits on his helmet and pulls a small bottle of oil from the compartment in the Garand's buttstock. He runs a patch through the bore, reflecting on the miles this rifle has traveled. From the grit of North Africa to the frozen foxholes of the Bastogne. The M1 has been more than a tool. It has been the definitive equalizer. While the Soviet Union relied on the sheer mass of the T-34 tank and the Red Army's numbers, and the British relied on the stubborn reliability of the Lee Enfield, the American advantage was built on this piece of engineering. General George S. Patton's words echo through the history of the conflict. The M1 Garand is the greatest battle implement ever devised. It wasn't just hyperbole. The rifle allowed the United States to field an army of citizens and turn them into a force that could outshoot professional soldiers who had spent years mastering the bolt action. By the time the M1 was officially replaced by the M14 in 1959, over 5.4 million units had been produced. Even then, it didn't truly retire. It stayed in the hands of honor guards, drill teams, and civilian marksmen, its silhouette instantly recognizable to any student of history. The ping of the empty clip had become the anthem of the American infantry, a mechanical bridge between the era of the horse and the age of the jet. The war was won by many things: the B-17S in the sky, the Liberty ships on the sea, and the atomic bomb in the desert. But for the man in the mud, the victory was won 8 rounds at a time. August 1942. The Matanicow River, Guadalcanal. The humidity is a physical weight, and the silence of the Solomon Islands jungle is broken only by the rhythmic drip-drip of condensation from giant ferns. Corporal Thomas Miller of the 1st Marine Division wipes sweat from his eyes, his finger resting lightly on the trigger guard of his M1. Across the river, hidden in the dense undergrowth, are soldiers of the Imperial Japanese Army. Suddenly, the jungle erupts. The Japanese soldiers charge, shouting cries that are drowned out by the rhythmic crack, crack, crack of Miller's Garand. He doesn't have to look down. He doesn't have to fumble with a bolt handle while a bayonet closes the distance. He stays on target, the recoil of the .30-06 rounds bucking against his shoulder as he empties his clip in seconds. Then, it happens. Ping! The steel clip arches through the air, hitting a rock with a distinct metallic chime. In the post-war years, veterans would swap stories, tales of Japanese or German soldiers who learned to listen for that sound, knowing it signaled an empty rifle. Some said clever GIS would throw empty clips against rocks to trick the enemy into charging an American who still had a full chamber. But here, in the life-and-death reality of the Matanicow, Miller knows the ping is largely a ghost story for the movies. Between the screams, the mortar rounds, and the roar of his squad mates' rifles, the enemy can't hear a piece of stamped steel hitting the dirt. More importantly, Miller isn't alone. As he reloads, his buddy to the left is still firing. The American squad is a machine of overlapping fire, and the M1 Garand is its heartbeat. The power of the .30-06 round is devastating. It punches through the thick tropical trunks that the Japanese use for cover, turning a concealment spot into a death trap. While the enemy's Arisaka rifles are accurate, they lack the sheer volume of lead the Garand can put into the air. This is superior firepower in its rawest form, not just hitting the target, but suppressing the enemy's very will to move. By the end of the day, as the smoke clears over the river, Miller cleans the carbon from his gas cylinder. His shoulder is bruised and his ears are ringing, but he looks at the walnut stock of his rifle with a newfound reverence. It is heavy, yes, 4.3 kilograms of burden on a long march. But it is the reason he is still breathing. It is the weapon that turned the American infantryman from a rifleman into a one-man fire team, October 1930. Springfield Armory, Massachusetts. The air inside the arsenal is thick with the scent of machine oil and the rhythmic grinding of lathes. While the rest of the nation is spiraling into the depths of the Great Depression, a quiet, Canadian-born genius named John Garand is obsessing over a gas port. He isn't interested in the traditional bolt-action rifles that have dominated warfare for centuries. He is chasing a ghost, the perfect semi-automatic infantry weapon. Garand watches as a prototype is clamped into a test rig. The challenge has always been the immense pressure of the .30-06 Springfield cartridge. It is a beast of a round, designed to punch through steel helmets at half a mile. In a bolt-action rifle, the soldier's shoulder absorbs the kick, and the soldier's arm does the work of cycling the action. But Garand wants the gunpowder itself to do the labor. As the trigger is pulled, a small amount of burning gas is tapped from the barrel. This gas slams into a piston, which drives the long operating rod backward, rotating the bolt and unlocking it. It is a violent, beautiful sequence of mechanical timing. If the gas port is too small, the rifle jams. If it's too large, the rifle shakes itself to pieces. Garand's true stroke of brilliance, however, is the en bloc clip. Most military planners are terrified that soldiers will waste ammunition if they can fire too fast. They want a rifle that is slow and disciplined. Garand ignores them. He designs a system where an entire 8-round steel clip is dropped into the heart of the rifle. There are no detachable magazines to lose in the mud, no loose rounds rattling in pockets, and it is a self-contained unit of lethality. By the time the clouds of war gather over Europe, the U.S. Army has a decision to make. While the Wehrmacht is doubling down on the Kar 98K, a fine weapon, but one that requires the soldier to break his cheek weld and stop aiming every time he fires. The Americans choose the M1. It is heavy, nearly 10 pounds of walnut and parkerized steel, and it kicks like a mule. But it gives the individual American doughboy a psychological edge that no other army can match. Back on the firing line at a training camp in Georgia, a drill sergeant screams at a group of terrified recruits. One young man, his hands shaking, tries to force a clip into his M1 with his thumb directly in the path of the bolt. Crack! The bolt slams forward, catching the meat of his thumb against the chamber, and the recruit howls in pain, his first lesson in the Garand Thumb. It is a rite of passage. In a few months, these men will be in the hedgerows of France or the jungles of Guadalcanal, and they will realize that the pain of a bruised thumb is a small price to pay for the wall of fire they can now unleash. June 6, 1944. 6:30 hours. Dog Green Sector, Omaha Beach. The steel ramp of the Higgins boat falls with a deafening clang, and the world turns into a chaotic symphony of whistling lead and exploding salt water. Private First Class Elias Thorne stumbles into the surf, the weight of his 103-pound combat load dragging him toward the sandy bottom. In his white-knuckled grip is 9.5 pounds of walnut and forged steel, his M1 Garand. Around him, the air is thick with the thud, thud, thud of German MG-42s, the Hitler's buzzsaw that fires 1,200 rounds per minute. To the young men of the 29th Infantry Division, the situation feels hopeless. Across the Atlantic, the American industrial machine had promised them a firepower advantage. But here, pinned behind a shingle bank, the only thing that matters is the next 8 rounds. Thorne crawls behind a Czech hedgehog, blinking grit from his eyes. 200 yards away, nestled in a concrete pillbox, a German grenadier operates a Mauser Car 98K. The German soldier fires, then reaches up to manually cycle his bolt, click-clack, ejecting a spent brass casing before re-aiming. It is a ritual of the Great War, a slow, methodical pace of killing. But Thorne doesn't have a bolt to cycle. He shoulders his Garand, the heavy stock seating firmly against his jacket. He finds the front sight blade, centers it on the muzzle flash from the bunker, and squeezes. Bang! The gas-operated piston slams back, ejecting the .30-06 casing and chambering a fresh round in a fraction of a second. Bang! 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 In the time it takes the German to fire 2 aimed shots, Thorne has sent a wall of 5 high-velocity rounds toward the embrasure. This is the superior firepower the War Department envisioned, the ability for a single rifleman to suppress an entire squad. As Thorne reaches his 8th shot, a sharp metallic ping rings out, audible even over the roar of the surf as the en-bloc clip is birthed from the top of the receiver. It is the sound of a weapon that has just breathed its last for the moment, an empty mechanical exhale. Thorne reaches into his cartridge belt, his fingers fumbling for a fresh 8-round clip. He knows the danger of the Garand Thumb. If he isn't careful, that heavy bolt will slam forward on his digit with bone-crushing force. But there is no time for caution. He slams the clip in, the bolt strips the first round, and the M1 is hungry again. As the last plumes of gunfire cleared over the Elbe River and the Guadalcanal rainforests, the M1 Garand completed its mission. It didn't just win duels. It changed the world's perception of infantry soldiers. Behind each 8-round magazine lies a story of survival, of fingers bruised from loading ammunition and shoulders aching from marching. The M1 Garand may have faded from the spotlight, but its spirit remains on the battlefield, in the hands of those who used it to write the most heroic chapter of the 20th century.